Like I said, we pick up from where we left off when I saw you guys last time. It's when I saw you guys previously, we were talking about criminal law versus civil. And again, today, we're talking some real basics. Now, some of the stuff we're going to talk about today is going to even link back to where we left off last time. Because today, what we're going to be talking about is going to be the roles of judges and juries. Now, I do want to ask you this first. Anyone knows someone, again, like mom, dad, aunt, uncle, whoever, who has served on a jury? Know that they did jury duty. Okay? I need to first kind of explain the basis behind why we have juries and really what their purpose is. A jury is randomly selected from people within that community. Now, the reason why we randomly select these people is because it's the jury who's going to decide if the defendant is either guilty or not guilty. It's not up to an expert. It's not up to a member of government. It's up to us. Average people are the ones who determine the fate of someone who's been charged with a crime. So the state brings the charges. They say, you're going to court over this potential crime. And it's us who decides what will happen to that person. Now, this again is something that the founders said is paramount to our republic. You have to give power to these people in the community. Otherwise, it's a massive abuse of government power. Average people will decide your fate. Now, usually, a jury is going to be 12 people. Now, there can be circumstances where it's a little bit more, a little bit less, but on average, usually it's going to be 12 people. Now, those 12 people are chosen from a huge pool of individuals. I'll tell you my little story. I've been given my little notice in the mail to serve on a jury, I think it's 3 times. 2 times, I called them up, and this is part of the procedure. Call them up and you say, do you even need me tomorrow? And a lot of times they'll just say, nope, we settled that in court, you don't even have to come tomorrow. There was one where I called them up and they said, nope, we need you. This is going to go to court, you might be on the jury. So I showed up, and I'll always remember this because this was like one of the last days of summer vacation, and I thought, I can't believe it. Usually this doesn't happen. I'd rather sit by the pool today, but I got to go to jury duty. This is my job today because it keeps the republic going. Now, I showed up for jury duty, and they told me to bring a book because you're probably going to wait a while. I show up, it's me in this massive room with 300 other people. And they told us, it said, you're here because you may or may not be on the jury. We have 3 cases that we need jurors for. So here I am doing the math in my head. I was like, okay, 12 times 3, okay, all right. I'm looking around, it's there's 300 people here. Odds of me getting selected are pretty against. And then all of a sudden, within 10 minutes of me being there, they said, jurors with the number from this to this, you're staying. You've made the first cut. Look at my number, I was like, really? Okay, all right. So it's me and then 40 or 50 other people. They said, you guys are going over to this room, you're going to that one, you're going to that one. You go into the courtroom, and here are the lawyers. The lawyers are there, and it's now me and 20 other people. And they asked each individual some questions. So here I am, sitting down. And the lawyer's in front of me, and she goes, Mr. Nance, what's your profession? And I'm like, I'm a teacher. She goes, really? What's your level of education? I'm like, I have a master's degree. She goes, okay. What do you teach, by the way? Oddly enough, I teach U.S. history and law. And she goes, I remember she goes, ha, you're on the jury. Sit over there. I was like, really? I'm like, I never thought. It's like, okay, all right. The odds were against, but here I am. So I'm sitting in the jury box, and she keeps interviewing people. Some people she puts in the jury box, and some people she goes, yeah, you're not what we're looking for. You can go. There was this one guy, because I will remember this forever. This guy comes up, and he's in sweatpants. Now, he's in sweatpants, and he's sitting on this chair, like barely holding it together. Like, I'm going to try my best. He was just going, ah. And they're like, Mr. Johnson, can I ask you some questions? And he goes, okay. It's like, all right. So here's the lawyer saying, what's your profession? He goes, I'm unemployed. I'm like, I know you are. And that's like, okay, like, what's your education level? And he goes, I don't have one. It's like, that's a weird way to answer that, but okay. It's like, Mr. Johnson, like, have you ever served on a jury before? He's like, nope. It's like, all right. And the lawyer goes, Mr. Johnson, like, you're not exactly what we're looking for. Like, you can go ahead and go. And he just goes, okay, thank you. Have a good day. Walks right out. And I remember watching that, and I'm like, this guy, I'm like, granted, I didn't want to be on the jury either. I would have rather been sitting by the pool. But this is our republic that's on the line. It's your job to serve on a jury if you're called, or otherwise, the government can be the jury. That's really the choice. Now, for my little scenario, the trial that I was on wasn't necessarily a real big deal, but this guy could have gone to jail. So when we first sat down, the judge is up at the front, and this is before the trial even gets going, like right before it happens. And he told us, your job is to simply apply the law as I tell you what it is. I don't care if you disagree with it. I don't care if you don't like it. Your job is to take this law and apply it according to the evidence. Your job is to determine if this person is guilty or not guilty beyond a, what do we say? Reasonable doubt. You are determining his fate. Now, the case that we were dealing with, like I said, it wasn't that big of a deal, but he could have gone to jail. It was a gun charge. And here we have this guy show up in court, and he stands at the desk, and I'll always think this is strange. The judge said, our defendant today has opted to defend himself. He doesn't want a lawyer. I think I told you guys, but maybe not. Do you know what lawyers do when they have some kind of charge against them? Get a lawyer. You need a lawyer, absolutely, because I'll be the first to say it. You have no idea what's going on. You don't know the procedure. You don't know how it works. And lawyers can be given to you. Always, always, always get a lawyer if you're going to court. Now, if it's something small like we just talked about, it's not that big of a deal. But if you might go to jail, get a lawyer. It's a guarantee you can have it. The founders wanted you to have it. You need all the protections you can get. Because I remember this happening. We're going through the trial, and this poor guy, I remember thinking to myself, like, this is a bad idea. He didn't know how the trial would work. So he wasn't very good at defending himself. Now, after all the evidence is presented, the jury's going to go back into this very small kind of room. And the room itself has a desk, 12 chairs, and a whiteboard. And I remember that because this is where my little story takes another little twist. The judge told us, look, there are no rules as to how you guys come to a decision here. I'm not going to tell you, you do this and then this and this. You guys figure it out. First step is you figure out who your foreperson is going to be. He closed the door behind him and he just left the 12 of us there. We all kind of looked at each other and we go, okay, well, let's pick our foreperson. This was just strange because this one person on the jury looks at me and he goes, you're the teacher, right? Well, yeah, I am. He goes, who votes for the teacher? All 11 hands go up. I was like, why me? It's like, because I know how to write on a whiteboard? Is that why? And they're like, I don't know, like you run people. Like, this just, you run it, you do it. I was like, all right, so how do you want to do this? And they all kind of stared at me. I was like, all right, I guess I'll do this. So I literally went up to the whiteboard, no idea what I was doing. And I just took out the pen. I was like, here's my expertise right here. I was like, well, let's just talk facts then. Like, what do we know? And we just started kind of writing things down. We just kind of discussed this for the rest of the day. So we were in there for a couple hours. And then we get to kind of the end of the day, and the judge goes, "Do you have a decision yet?" Like, "No, not yet." He goes, "Okay, go home. You're going to come back here tomorrow. See you at 8 tomorrow." All right. So we got back there, 8 o'clock in the morning. We talked for a few more hours, and we couldn't really decide. We were about split, 50-50. And the judge comes into our little room, and he goes, "You know what? You haven't talked long enough. Keep talking." So we talked for like a couple more hours. We're still like 50-50. And we come to the judge, we go, "We can't make a decision. We can't determine if this person is guilty or not guilty." He said, "Fine, if that's your decision, that is your verdict." Now, we kind of talked about it before. What are the options now if we couldn't come to a decision, if we were a hung jury? Do you remember the judge can do 2 things? What was it? Amy, you remember? It's a mistrial, you're absolutely right. And then 2 things can happen. Remember what it was? What was it?
They can dismiss the case or try it again.
Excellent. You can either just dismiss it and be done, or you can try it again. Now, I'm not sure what they decided. My job was done. But if they do want to do it again, they get a new jury. If that jury says, we can in fact say unanimously that this person is guilty, then the judge gets to do the sentencing portion. Now, the sentencing is the punishment. Now, usually kind of the way it works is the jury just says guilty or not guilty, and the judge does the sentencing. There are some instances where a jury can suggest what a punishment could be. They could say, we suggest this person serve 10 years in prison, whatever. But a judge basically gets to decide almost every time. This is what's called original jurisdiction. They get to hear the case first. Now, because they get to hear the case first, it's this court that's determining what the facts are, the evidence, guilty or not guilty. They decide first. Now, let me do this, because actually I think I'll be okay here. I want to ask, if you're in this scenario and the judge sentences you, again, we'll just say 10 years, is it over and done? I'm so glad I got both answers here. Kinda, sorta. Avian, something you want to ask?
Can't you appeal the decision?
You can appeal it. Now, we're going to get to the appeals process in just a little bit, but I want to take this opportunity to kind of compare and contrast some things. Again, today, I want to take a look at criminal and civil at basically the same time. If you're in a criminal case, there's a verdict. The jury says, yes, this person is either guilty or not guilty, and the judge can determine the sentencing. Now again, I just want to be clear about this. This is in a criminal case. Now we were talking the other day about how civil's very different. If you're in a civil trial, is anyone going to jail? Oh mercy. Anyone going to jail in a civil trial? No, not going to jail. Civil is all about settling disputes between 2 people or groups. So in a civil case, you don't get a verdict. You don't get a guilty or not guilty. You don't get beyond a reasonable doubt. In a civil case, you get preponderance of evidence. Whoever has 51% of the evidence on their side gets the judgment in their case. Now, I always want to be certain I'm clear about this, so I got to go back to the example I used the other day. Someone hits your car in an intersection, totals your car. The judgment is that person has to pay for a new car for you. That makes you whole. Now, I want to be certain that I'm just clear on the different verbiage and how the 2 systems are different. So are we okay on both criminal, civil? Okay. Now, there's also one more thing that I want to throw in here. Because a judge can issue what's called an injunction. An injunction is a court order to stop doing something or to not do something. So an injunction can be like on a law. A judge can say, stop enforcing that law for now. Injunctions usually have a time limit on it.